There are two kinds of 5G. One of them is on your phone. The other one is in their ads. They have different names, different hardware, different speeds. Carriers use both of them, and they call them the same thing. That decision was not an accident. Before we get into the architecture of how this works, start with a number. The average real-world 5G download speed in the United States right now is somewhere between 130 and 250 megabits per second. That is a real improvement over 4G LTE, which averages around 30 to 50. Meaningful, worth having. Carriers advertised 10 gigabits per second. That is not a rounding error. That is not a worst-case scenario versus a best-case scenario. That is a gap of approximately 40 to 1 between what was marketed and what was delivered. And the reason that gap exists goes all the way down to physics. Physics the carriers understood perfectly when they made those advertisements. Here's what they knew and did not tell you. 5G is not one technology. It is a brand name applied to two fundamentally different radio systems that operate on completely different parts of the electromagnetic spectrum, behave completely differently in the real world, and deliver completely different performance. The ITU, the International Telecommunication Union, defined the standard. The carriers defined the marketing. And somewhere between those two decisions, the distinction between the two systems disappeared from every advertisement ever made. The first system is called mmWave, mmWave. This is the 5G in the commercials. It operates on extremely high frequency spectrum, above 24 gigahertz, and the physics of that frequency range produce genuinely extraordinary performance. Multi-gigabit speeds, low latency measured in single-digit milliseconds, real, transformative, next-generation connectivity. It also travels approximately 300 feet from the tower. It cannot penetrate walls, it struggles with glass, rain degrades it, your hand holding the phone can degrade it, a tree can degrade it. mmWave is a line-of-sight technology that requires you to be standing within a city block of a tower with nothing between you and the antenna. The second system is called sub-6 GHz 5G. This is the 5G on your phone. It operates on lower frequency spectrum, below 6 GHz, which means it travels further, penetrates buildings, and behaves like a normal cellular signal. It is the real 5G that covers the map they show you. It is real, it works, and its real-world speeds are 130 to 250 megabits per second, which is a modest upgrade from 4G. Not a revolution, an increment. Carriers took the revolutionary performance of one system and the actual coverage of another system, called them both 5G, and marketed the speeds of the first against the coverage of the second. The advertisements showed gigabit speeds. The network delivered sub-6. The phone icon said 5G either way. Expert aside, the technical names for these deployment types are FR1, frequency range 1, which covers sub-6 GHz, and FR2, which covers mmWave above 24 GHz. When a carrier says their network supports 5G, they are almost certainly referring to FR1 deployment. mmWave infrastructure exists in dense urban areas, stadiums, and airports. It is not a nationwide network and was never going to be one. The physics make nationwide mmWave deployment economically impossible with current tower density. The coverage map deception runs even deeper than spectrum fraud. In 2026, Rogers Communications in Canada is under active regulatory investigation for overstating 5G coverage on their published maps. This is not a rumor. This is a documented complaint being examined by the Canadian Radio Telecommunications Commission. Rogers is not unique, they are just the one currently being investigated. Here is how coverage map fraud works. A carrier places a tower. That tower technically emits a signal that reaches a certain geographic area. The carrier shades that entire area on their map as covered. What covered means legally is that a signal exists. What covered implies to a consumer is that you can make a call, load a page, stream video. Those are not the same thing.
a signal that technically reaches your address but delivers 2 megabits per second at the edge of its range is counted the same as a signal delivering 200 megabits at the center of coverage. Both are 5G, both are on the map, one of them is useless. The third deception predates 5G entirely, but 5G made it worse.
In 2018, AT&T began displaying a 5GE icon on certain smartphones in their network. 5GE stood for 5G Evolution. The network it indicated was 4G LTE Advanced, not 5G, not a 5G upgrade. Standard 4G technology with a software update that changed the icon. T-Mobile filed a lawsuit. The lawsuit was settled. The icon stayed on phones for 2 more years. AT&T was not alone. Multiple carriers in multiple markets applied 5G branding to infrastructure that did not meet the technical definition of 5G under any standard. The FTC received complaints. The complaints were reviewed. The icons remained. Expert aside, the technical threshold for 5G under 3GPP Release 15, the first true 5G standard, requires new radio air interface technology. LTE Advanced, regardless of how fast it is, does not qualify. 5GE was not a gray area, it was a rebrand. The settlement AT&T reached with T-Mobile included no admission of wrongdoing and no requirement to change the icon immediately. Now for the part that matters to your bill. Sub-6 GHz 5G is a real improvement that is worth stating clearly. It is faster than 4G in most conditions, more efficient in congested areas, and better equipped to handle the number of connected devices on a modern network. If you have it, it is genuinely better than what came before. It is not worth the premium carriers charge to access it. In the United States, 5G plans carry a meaningful monthly premium over equivalent 4G plans on the same carrier. The performance difference in real-world conditions outside of dense urban cores with mmWave infrastructure does not justify that premium for most use cases. Streaming video, navigation, social media, email, none of these applications come close to saturating a 4G LTE connection. The upgrade is real. The price of the upgrade is not proportional to the value delivered. The phone upgrade cycle is the second cost. Carriers pushed 5G handset upgrades aggressively from 2020 onward. 5G phones carried significant price premiums over their 4G equivalents. The sales pitch was that you needed a 5G phone to access the next generation network. What was not disclosed was that the next generation network in most markets was sub-6 GHz 5G, a technology that for most consumers in most locations delivered speeds they could not meaningfully distinguish from their existing 4G connection. And now, before the 5G build-out is complete, before mmWave coverage has reached anything approaching widespread availability, carriers have begun pre-marketing 6G, the technology that will make your current phone obsolete, the upgrade cycle that begins before the last one is finished. Expert aside, 6G standardization is currently in early research phases under ITUR IMT 2030 framework. Commercial deployment is projected no earlier than 2030. Carriers discussing 6G today are discussing a technology that does not exist in deployable form. The marketing serves one purpose, making consumers feel their current device is already falling behind. Here's what is actually true. The network under your feet is better than it ever been. Real-world 5G speeds, even the sub-6 GHz variety, are a genuine improvement for high-bandwidth applications in congested urban environments. The technology works. The infrastructure investment was real. What was not real was the gap between 10 gigabits per second and 200 megabits per second, presented as if it were a rounding error. What was not real was a 5G icon on a 4G network. The signal in your pocket is faster than it was 5 years ago. It is less than 5% of what they told you it would be. That gap between the physics of what is possible and the number on the advertisement is not unique to 5G.
It runs through every specification on every box of every product in this series. The number is always real. The context is always missing. And the context is always the part that costs you money. The next piece pulls that thread into the cables running between every device you own, where a different set of numbers, a different set of standards, and a different set of deliberate omissions are doing the same thing to your data that carriers did to your signal. Subscribe. Sudo bid logic is just getting started.